I do not talk this much on a regular basis. I actually actively avoid it. So. Hello, BookTube. I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in January. I wasn't going to have time to film this, but then we got this snow day and I get to go into work late today. So I'm just gonna do it. Let's dive into the books that I read, what I rated them. Let's mess up some authors' names. Let's just all have a good time, right? The first book that I read in January is The Wind-Up Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi. What did I rate this? I rated it... What did I rate it? I rated it 1 star. I hated this book, and it was such a struggle to get through. It is set in Thailand, and like after this, it's like post-apocalyptic kind of, sort of, like industrial apocalypse of some sort. So like they have to genetically modify all these plants and food. I don't know, it's like they use all of these terms, but they don't give you any context for what the terms mean. None of the characters are likable, and the titular character is seen so little. And I actually think that she is kind of a badass character, but she's mostly an accessory to other people's storylines. And the ending's like, alright, but like getting there is not fun. Not a fun experience. Wouldn't recommend that book. The second book that I read in January was An Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon. I gave this 4 stars. Autistic representation, non-binary representation in space. It's dark though, and I've heard people's complaints that it's like slave worship or like slave porn, and I totally get that, but also thinking about these humans in this story have no history of slavery on Earth, and it just shows what I think is the reality is that humans are so terrible that even like 2,000 years when we're in space, white humans will still be that fucking shitty. I think that's realistic. That's a realistic expectation. It's not hopeful, but it's realistic. And I really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the ending. 4 stars. Internment by Samira Ahmed. I gave this book 4 stars as well. I talked about this in my last reading vlog. Overall, the messaging and the quotes and like the story of it is really strong, especially since it takes place in our very near future and it's very realistic, terrifyingly so. The characters are lackluster. They're not bad. They're not like, I don't dislike them, but they're kind of bland and surface level. So, like, the dad is supposed to be a poet, and I feel like they don't lean on that enough. They don't intersperse that concept enough of him being a poet. And also, like, just the fact that they are there because Muslim is supposed to be their religion, and that's not really even talked about at all. And I just wish that had been more in-depth. I think that would have been more enjoyable, and the message would have made more sense, I think. But overall, considering our current political landscape, it's great. Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera. I gave it 4 stars. Once again, it is a queer YA, and for that reason, I feel like it is an important read for queer YA. To me, I thought, same with kind of Internment, I thought that it was, the characters were a little lackluster, and I think it was a little too surface level, but in a one-off, queer YA, contemporary, contemporary, it's set in 2002, and they don't tell you that. At least I missed that, so I was confused about like what time this had been taking place. But anyways, 4 stars. The next book I read was Loba by Deanne DePrima, and I gave it 3 stars. Well, 3.5, but Goodreads, God forbid you give us half stars. Right. It's a book of poetry, and it's about like dark goddesses. It has like dark tones and themes, and it's kind of badass, kind of goddess empowerment type of thing. It's some of it's kind of spoopy. I really like the imagery and the tone, but I'm a really picky poetry reader, so, and it gets repetitive, like, towards the end, so the poems tend to kind of repeat their messages. So, next book I read, I'm just gonna do these 2 together. I read the 2 Stranger Things graphic novels that have come out so far. So the first one is called 6, and it's about the experiment numbered 6. 11 is 11, 6 is 6. I love the artwork, and I love showing the Institute before 11's heyday there. But the main character 6, I don't think is very likable. And like most of the characters are not very likable, so it was hard to really like empathize, and it was hard even to think about what her motivations were, because I don't know, she was just like seemed mad for the sake of being mad. She didn't really seem to have like a strong, she didn't really seem to have like a strong purpose, a sense of purpose and direction. So she was just like mad to be mad, and like that was kind of it. I don't know. It was unfortunate. Oh, and these are by Jody Hauser. These 2 Stranger Things graphic novels. The other one was Stranger Things: The Other Side. This one I loved, and it's funny because I read the reviews and people are like nothing happens in here. It's stuff we've already seen. Nothing of interest happens. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because here's the thing. Will is my favorite Stranger Things character besides Steve. It's just a moment of silence for Steve and a moment of silence for Bob. Okay? Bob deserved better. Hashtag Bob deserved better. I have that as a shirt, actually. But Will, as far as like the kids go, is my favorite character. That actor, that kid who plays Will, the best acting, especially in season 2. Above the adults, above the teenagers, all the other kids, his acting blew me away. It holds season 2 up, and it's brilliant. He like outshines everyone. So Will is my favorite character, and getting to see what he was doing, like how things looked on his end, what he was doing in the Upside Down, I loved it. And the artwork is so brilliant. They do this thing where, because he's a wizard in the D&D campaign, they draw him as a wizard, like going on an adventure in the Upside Down. It's brilliant. The artwork is amazing. I can't even. It's so good. So I gave 6, the graphic novel 6. I gave that 3 stars. But The Other Side, I gave 4 stars because I love Will so much. The next book that I read is The Alchemy of Stone by Ekaterina Stadia, and I really liked this book. Okay, you will witness it in the reading vlog. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It didn't quite push it to 5 because, I mean, the ending is so sad. The Alchemy of Stone is like a Victorian steampunk, at least that's how I viewed it in my head, and it follows this automation who is trying to save the gargoyles, which, like, I've yet ever to read about gargoyles in a book. And it has a character called the Soul Smoker, and it has, like, these little, what do you call them? Like, golems, almost, essentially. It's like these little blood creatures that, like, move around. They're adorable, though, but they're disgusting. And it, like, has political elements. and it's like the characters I think are so strong, and it has intrigue. I love the gargoyles. I love the soul smoker, and it's a good book. It's just the ending is really sad. What can I say? So this is an author that I loved as a teenager because hashtag manic pixie dream girl. Francesca Leah Block. If you know, you know. You know the vibe. You know the witsy bat vibes, okay? So I read Echo. And I gave it 3 stars because, I mean, if you know this author, you know they write very poetically. It's almost like nonsensical how they write, and I like that. It's very dreamy, it's very atmospheric, and it's just I love that type of writing. But this book is problematic. It glorifies unhealthy white girls to an extreme, and why I wrote down multiple times how many times they reference Echo's eating disorder without that being addressed, kind of glorified as being like poetic, and like it's poetic to be a damaged female. Like, what the fuck? And then this is said multiple times about people having translucent skin. That's not healthy. Y'all are unhealthy. You need to seek medical treatment if your skin is translucent. That's not poetic. That's not dreamy. That's not sexy. That's not beautiful. It's you are unhealthy. I'm worried about you. And then to top it all off, the pedophilia. Okay, it's not like overt, but like there's this one freaking character, and she's like a young girl who like her dad's in a band, so she like goes at these clubs all the time, and this is when she's like 10 to 12, and people are like, she's flirting with adult dudes and like saying suggestive things to them like, oh, don't you remember loving me when I was a kid? Like, what the fuck? And then she doesn't know that her dad is her dad, and then she thinks that it's just like her mom's friend, and she like flirts with him, and it's like, dude, that's your fucking dad. It happens like so often with this one character, just like, I forgot another one. Echo's parents, actually. So Echo's parents, her mom is a kid living at a hotel, a child, a literal child. Her dad is an adult man who comes to this hotel, sees her, and said something about like how her hands are so small they could be pendants around his neck. A child's hands could be pendants around your neck, and then it says he's going to wait for her. He's going to wait for her. A child. He fell in love with a child. Why is that seen as romantic? That's fucked up. So this book, well written, problematic as fuck. That's what I have to say about it. Oh, it's so frustrating. The next book I read was Frog Music by Emma Donoghue. This book surprised me. I did not think I was going to like it. I don't really like historical fiction that much. And this was a gift. I didn't read anything about it before I just started reading it, so I had no idea what it was about. So it's about San Francisco in the 1870s. Wild. It's wild. And it's about this lady who is like a exotic dancer slash sex worker, and she lives with her boyfriend, and then one day she meets I don't really know who wears pants, which is illegal, by the way, and therefore makes her like this social pariah. And she is a frog catcher for French restaurant, and she has this big, one of those like ridiculously big wheeled bicycles. She has one of those, and she's just like a free soul, and she's just living life, and she's a breeze on the wind. And the main character, it's about their lives getting intertwined, and then there's a murder, and it's a mystery, and there's a baby that no one likes, and it was a wild ride. I don't think that the main character is very likable, but Jenny is very likable. And then at the end, because I didn't look into this book before I read it, I found out it's based off a true murder mystery that happened in real life. All of these characters are real people. It was interesting. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's definitely not my normal style of book that I would read, and I would not read that style again, regardless of how delightful it was. The last book that I read in January was how do you pronounce this? The Fast Act? The Fast Act. I really hate this. It's The Fast Act, The Wicked and the Divine by Kieran Gillen and illustrated by Jamie McKelvey and colored by Matt Wilson. And the premise is these gods from all these different pantheons and like cultures and religions. So I think it's 12 of them from all these different cultures are reincarnated every 90 years, but they only get to live as gods for 2 years. So they're born, like the human that they will inhabit is born. So the humans are born, they live to whatever age they are going to be, and then they get embodied by the gods, and then the gods have power. So this follows someone who is a fangirl of the gods, because the gods do like these, not sermons, but they do these shows, and they like do these spectacular events, and people worship them because they're gods, and that's like what they want. You know, they want people to think that they're cool. The main character is a fangirl of the gods, and she gets wrapped up in this because she becomes friends with Lucifer, who's one of the gods, who's like this badass female, and it follows like this almost kind of a murder mystery, but it follows like the drama because Lucifer gets blamed for this murder that they didn't do, and then the main character is having to like meet all these other gods to try to figure out like what happened. Like they meet the Morrigan, and the Morrigan scenes are so fucking brilliant. It's so good. And yeah, it's really interesting and weird, and I love the artwork. The artwork is so good. 11 books in the month of January. Done. Alright, so that was my January reading wrap up. I don't really like the term wrap up, but that's what BookTube uses, so I guess that's what I'm using until I think of something better. Okay. Alright. See you soon with another video about books, or maybe not. I don't know. I'm not putting myself in a box here. Alright? And you shouldn't either.